According to a Washington Times report, the U.S. military's fast approaching December 31st exit from Iraq, which has no way to defend its airspace, puts Israel in a better place strategically to strike Iran's nuclear facilities. Iraq has yet to assemble a force of jet fighters, and since the shortest route for Israeli strike fighters to Iran is through Iraqi airspace, observers conclude that the U.S. exit makes the Jewish state's mission planning a lot easier. Army Major General Jeffrey Buchanan, the top U.S. military spokesman in Iraq, said that the Iraqi military will maintain radars to monitor the country's airspace, but it has not taken possession of American F-16s to guard the space. In an appearance this month at the Brookings Institute, Defense Secretary Leon Panetta said U.S. strikes might set back the nuclear program 2 years and acknowledged that some Iranian targets remain elusive. Israeli news reports say that Mr. Netanyahu has tried to build a political consensus to strike Iran. The problem Israeli pilots would face in such a strike is first getting into Iranian airspace, then penetrating the country's multi-layered air defense. In an Israel National News article, the article's entitled "Expose," the Vatican wants to lay its hands on Jerusalem. Basically what this report is saying is that in order for peace to ever be achieved between Israel and the Palestinians or Arab world, the issue of the holy sites in Jerusalem will have to be dealt with first. In fact, it says peace negotiations in the Middle East must tackle the issue of the status of the holy sites of Jerusalem. Cardinal Jean-Louis Turan, head of the Vatican's Council for Interreligious Dialogue, declared several days ago in Rome. The Vatican's former foreign minister asked to place some Israeli holy sites under Vatican authority, alluding to the synagogue on Mount Zion and the Garden of Gethsemane at the foot of the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. The first site also houses what is referred to as King David's tomb. There will not be peace if the question of the holy sites is not adequately resolved, Turan said. The part of Jerusalem within the walls with the holy sites of the three religions is humanity's heritage. The sacred and unique character of the area must be safeguarded, and it can only be done with a special internationally guaranteed status. The Israeli government and the Vatican are deadlocked in discussions over the status of the religious sites. Vatican officials are now reiterating their demand for control over the religious sites in the ancient and holy city founded by King David as the capital of ancient Israel and now the capital of the reestablished Jewish state. Danny Ayalon, Israel's deputy foreign minister, declared that Israel might consider giving the Vatican a greater role in operating the sites. In the last weeks, the Roman Catholic Church's authorities increased their political initiatives for Catholic control over some sites in Jerusalem. For years, the international community has desired to internationalize Israel and their holy sites. That very well could be what Revelation 11:1 and 2 is referring to. But I do believe that when Israel does rebuild their temple, it will be out of a Jewish resurgence after the Battle of Gog and Magog, when Israel will finally defeat their enemies and rebuild their temple. This will likely happen in the beginning stages or the early stages of the tribulation period. Recently, I have been reading a number of articles that have tried to place the problem in Syria with Isaiah 17:1 or the destruction of Damascus. Whether or not now is the time for that prophecy to take place, at some point in time it will. I don't know that it is a viable move at this time internationally. In fact, in a recent Stratfor intelligence report, they looked at the possibility of a Syrian strike by the various international powers, and this is what they had to say. The title of the excerpt is called "Syria is Not Libya." Although there are a lot of similarities between Syria and Libya, there are a lot of glaring differences as well that may not make Syria as good a target or as easy of a prey as Libya was. And it says, it is tempting to compare Syria to Libya, which very recently was the target of an outside intervention. Some similarities exist. The Assad regime came to power in a military coup around the time the Gaddafi regime took control of Libya, and the regimes are equally brutal. And like Libya, Syria is a country that is quite divided along demographic and sectarian lines and is governed by a small minority of the population. However, we must recognize that the situation in Syria is quite different than Libya's. First, the fault lines along which Syrian society is divided are not as regionally distinct as those of Libya. In Syria, there is no area like Benghazi where the opposition can dominate and control territory that can be used as a base to project power. As our map indicates, and the map is on the article, protests have occurred throughout Syria, and the Free Syrian Army claims to have a presence in many parts of the country. Moreover, while some low-level, mostly Sunni soldiers have defected from the Alawite-controlled Syrian military to the FSA, Syria has not seen the large-scale military defections that occurred in Benghazi and eastern Libya at the beginning of that conflict that immediately provided the opposition with a substantial conventional military force. Sometimes entire units defected. The Syrian military has remained far more unified and intact than the Libyan military. Second, Syria simply does not have the oil reserves or oil resources Libya does. We have not seen the Europeans push for military intervention in Syria with the same enthusiasm that they did in Libya. Even France, which has been the most vocal of the European countries against Syria, has recently backed away from advocating direct military intervention. The strength of the Syrian military, specifically its air defense system, which is far superior to Libya's, means military intervention would be far more costly in Syria than in Libya, in terms of human casualties and money. In fact, Syria spent some $264 million on air defense weapons in 2009 and 2010, after the embarrassing 2007 Israeli strike on a Syrian nuclear reactor. With the future of Libya still unclear, it does not appear that the United States and Europe have the political will or economic incentive to conduct another major military intervention. Like the 2003 invasion of Iraq, any invasion of Syria would be a massive undertaking, and there would be clear evidence of a build-up to such an invasion. The likelihood of actions against Syria happening at the top of the force continuum is very remote. Again, although it may not happen at this point in time, the Bible does indicate that at some point in time Damascus will be destroyed. That may or may not be in the immediate future, but their time is coming, and Bible prophecy will be fulfilled. As many of you know, the European Union is in the middle of a financial crisis. Countries such as Greece, Italy, and Spain are in the middle of this and are basically in the process of going bankrupt. The international community has been creating money out of thin air to pay the bills and to keep up with payments for these various countries, but their day is coming where bankruptcy will finally take hold. In fact, interest rates for such loans to these countries has skyrocketed beyond the total gross domestic product of the countries, for which they are no longer able to pay their bills. But the IMF, the U.S., and France, Germany, and the U.K., and other organizations continue to write multiple bad checks to help stave off the inevitable. They are literally living from paycheck to paycheck at this point. But this process has caused the markets to respond positively in recent days. Many sophisticated investors know it's a house of cards. But like our political leaders, they don't want the cards to come crashing down on their watch, and are even profiting on the scheme at least for now. In spite of the reality that ever more hot checks are being written to cover earlier ones, this act has the effect of restoring confidence in the markets. Savvy analysts now refer to this insanity as an addiction to hopium. But be sure the day will come when the scheme cannot continue. And I do not see a soft landing regardless of when and how the end game unfolds. You would be wise to take a very good look at what's going on in the European Union financial crisis, because it's coming to other parts of the world as we speak. Frankly, I believe this economic disaster that is about to take place will probably play a big part in why we will need a new world order in the coming future, and a central leader in order to direct what needs to be done. How soon are we from that taking place? Frankly, I don't know. But time is drawing near. This is Terry Malone with the Calvary Prophecy Report.